Greetings, everyone. How are we doing? Welcome back to my channel here on another exercise in translating the Greek Church Fathers. Today, I think we'll return eventually to the exercise with Eusebius of Caesarea on Psalm 88. But for today, just to kind of give another sampling, as it were, of some the Greek tradition, let's turn to Theodoret of Cyrus, famous in the Antiochene school of biblical interpretation there in the 4th, 5th century. Of course, that distinction, the Alexandrian versus the Antiochene school, has become increasingly known as a kind of an overwrought distinction. And Theodoret, being a real, say, moderate voice in that kind of idea of there being schools, right? Particularly with his commentary that we're going to look at today on the Song of Songs. So his commentary on the Song of Songs is we see a full embrace, we might say, of a more spiritual hermeneutic, a more spiritual approach to interpretation, because of course the Song of Songs is a mystical text. So Theodoret, his dates are somewhere, I didn't pull them up right here exactly, but somewhere in the mid to late 4th into the mid 5th century. He was a contemporary, of course, of Saint Cyril of Alexandria, and was a rival in many respects in the Christological disputes at the time. He was more sympathetic to the Antiochene, both Christology and understanding of Scripture and scriptural hermeneutics, but was also so he in some ways aligned with Nestorius, right? And Nestorius is, again, to put it very sort of starkly or without any nuance, the idea of there's two persons, right? Two persons in Christ. There's the divine person, and then the prosopone, and then the human prosopone, and they're connected. The synaphia, I think it's called in the Greek term, to synopto, to be touching together. So that sense of a connection, a relative union of two, say, prosopa, two persons in the incarnate Christ. And of course, Saint Cyril will dispute that, and of course he will represent the mind of the church on that question. Ultimately, that there is one divine person, one divine hypostasis, who assumes that is Christ, the Son, the eternal Son, who assumes human nature, a complete human nature, right? So body, soul, spirit, nous, and in himself heals, assumes and heals, deifies human nature. So that does have that Christology question does have broader implications, of course. I mean, for metaphysics, for the understanding of the scriptures themselves. So it's not it just kind of flows down our understanding of the Trinity, of Christ and the Incarnation, has broader, deeper implications for how we understand the reality, how God relates to the world, and everything in the world. Then, how so Scripture being part of the world, right? So, but I'm digressing a little, but just to set the context. So Theodoret is himself, I've seen the adjective blessed attributed to him. So he's not, I think, from an Orthodox perspective, not technically a saint, but he is represented, or he is represented or seen, viewed as a pious figure who was, in a way, on the wrong side of an important Christological, or had sympathies on the wrong side of an important Christological debate. But so some of his writings were anathematized subsequently. So I think it's called the Three Chapters. But he himself, as a person, was not excommunicated or anathematized. So he's again, I think we could call him blessed. But I believe this is a representation, obviously, as not really being a saint. He therefore does not have an iconographic tradition within the Orthodox Church. But this is I believe, an iconic sort of representation of him from the cover of a work about him that collects and translates some of his writings. I think I believe that's a Routledge Press. But I can return to that. And so if you Google, like images of Theodoret of Cyrus, you won't find too much. So there he is. I think some sort of a iconic representation of him. But let's put him aside here, and I just returned to this commentary on the Song of Songs. I have a translation of the preface and his commentary on chapter 1 of the song, which I have that up on academia.edu. It's already been translated in full by Robert Hill, the late Robert Hill. I have not purchased or acquired that translation yet. It's from an Australian press. So there is a translation, if you're of the whole work of the commentary on the Song of Songs. But for my own edification, along with a sort of friend, colleague at one of the seminaries I teach at, we a couple of years ago were working on it together, and we just returned to it. So I thought it'd be good to just engage that and do a little video on it here as we diversify our the authors that we look at in our channel here, our translation channel. So let's get rid of that. And so this begins his commentary on chapter 2 of the song. So I would recommend, if you're interested, to get a sense of his approach. He has a very interesting, in his preface, some really interesting like canonical and historical considerations for the song as a whole. So we maybe in subsequent videos we could explore some of that. But just as an exercise in translation, let's look at this here and see what he has for us. So of course, abbreviation here, kephal, right? So abbreviation for kephaleon, meaning chapter, right? We get the kephali, head, right? So the head of something, the chapter, the capit, I think is that French? The capit, and then vita, so chapter 2. So let's find our good. So alpha, there, the number 1, of course using letters again. So ego gar physin anthos tu pediu krinon ton kilomaton. So that's the lema there, the verse itself. Song 2, verse 1. So ego, I, gar, so post positive, right? So gar, for I, physin, he says, anthos to pediu. So I have to supply an am here. So I am a flower of the plain. So pronoun, nominative singular pronoun, and then a nominative singular noun. It's kind of like a noun sentence, right? So in which we have to supply an am. I am a flower to pediu. Genitive here. Either I'd have to look it up if it's a neuter or a masculine, but genitive singular. So I am a flower of the genitive, the of. I'm a flower of the plain. Krinon, a lily, ton kilomaton, a lily of the valleys, plural. See another genitive plural here, kilomaton. All right, so that's the lema, the song verse. What is the interpretation? Tell us, Theodoret, here. Tin anthropinin mu physin, ev morphian tethease, epidi theon udis eorake popote. All right. So let's see what we have here. Good practice to always look for a verb, and if we can't identify a verb, then we can start narrowing down our options, right? But so our verb here, our main verb is tethease, and if we're keyed into like tenses, the key marker of a perfect verb is reduplication. That is, the first two letters or first syllable of the root will be duplicated at the beginning. So tethease. So the te is like a reduplication of the the. So in any case, if we're sensitive to that, we can see, hey, that looks like a perfect verb. And so having looked this up and had a sense already, but this is a second person singular perfect from theame, I think it is. So get the exact vowels there. Theaome, right? Or theao. So the theaome would be the like a middle passive, right? Like a deponent, right? Active in meaning, but middle and passive in form. So, and of course, we get theater from this, right? This root. So a verb that's about beholding or seeing, gazing at. And so second person singular perfect. So you, and maybe let's back up just a bit. So physin. So we have a quotation, right? We have the song itself, the verse is in direct discourse. Someone speaking to someone. I am a flower of the plain, etc. So we're in this mode of direct discourse. So physin here is Theodoret saying, "Hey, I'm going to continue in that mode. I'm going to like paraphrase the song, not the psalmist here, but the character, the figure in the psalm who is speaking. So he says, right? So he says, you tethease, you have beheld, Now we need a direct object. What have you beheld? Teen, anthropenin, mu, and then we have to jump over the feicine to evmorphion. So you have beheld teen anthropenin, evmorphion, and then the possessive mu, of me. So the human evmorphion. Pretty easy to break that down, right? Ev being a prefix meaning good, and then morphion, something pertaining to form or shape. And so kind of to gloss that, like I say literally human anthropenin, human good form, my human attractiveness, my human form that is whatever, comely or beautiful. It's kind of hard to gloss that actually, but so you have beheld, or you beheld my human good form. Epi thee, quoting here the evangelist John, theon udis e orake popote. Since, epi thee, can also mean at times when, but here more like a relative, really that is causal, since, because, theon in the accusative, so that's our direct object. Now we look for a verb, eorake, another perfect here, from orao, to see, and then the subject would be udis, no one. Since, epi thee, udis eorake, no one has seen God, popote, at any time. So pote, ote, that has relationship to times, like a temporal particle, which often has to do with the past. But here it means po, like at any, so like never. You have never, since no one has ever, or no one has seen God at any time. Egogar to pediu anthos eionomin. Sorry, get the whole sentence there. So egogar to pediu anthos eionomin, tutesti yiinon anelavon soma, ke enti yi evlastisa pro eonios iparkon ke ipsilos malon the metritos. So gar ego, for I am, or well, let's jump here. For I, now we have like a form of to be supplied, right? A yenomin, which that is, I think that is the aorist. Again, I'm not a grammarian, so I always want to look things up, make sure I'm, yes, aorist. So yenome or yignome, so to be, to come into being. So here the aorist, first singular aorist. So I became, right? So for I became anthos to pediu. I became a flower of the plain. Okay, that's like the letter. Now tutesti. So tuto, see this all the time, right? Tuto plus estine. So this or that is, like, so what does that mean? Well, that is to say, right? For I became a flower for I became a flower of the plain. That is yiinon anelavon soma. The root here, ana lamvano. Lamvano meaning to take or to receive. And then ana, to take up. So hence to assume. And then we have a stem change and the epsilon augment, right? So we go from lamvano to lavon. And the there, the epsilon, so we know we're dealing with an aorist here. So that is, I assumed soma yiinon, a body that is earthy or earthly, right? Pertaining to earth. Ke enti yi evlastisa, and in the earth evlastisa, another aorist here. We have the vlastano, I believe is the root, vlastano, and then we have the epsilon augment with the sigma. Also with a stem change, but so vlastano. So in the earth I blossomed. Pro eonios iparkon ke ipsilos. We have a participle here, iparkon, nominative masculine singular from iparko, which is often just a synonym for imi, to be, right? So on the one hand, right, I assumed a body, an earthly body, while being pro eonios ke ipsilos, while being pre-eternal and exalted. Malon the ametritos, and we might even say even more, or rather, or how do I run it over here? Yeah, even more, I guess. And even more, or like ametritos. We have the alpha privative, right? And then metritos, having to do with measurement, right? So mean immeasurable. So the mystery of the incarnation, right? The eternal and uncircumscribed takes on that which is created and circumscribed. So that's the well, yeah, let's keep going, see what he has to say here. Very interesting reading. So, right, what is he saying? Right, that this is, if we were to go back and view his preface, right, that this is a following the tradition through, we can, I think, even start with, let's say, Paul himself, but through Origen's commentary on the song, that and the term epithalamium, that this is a marriage song between the Christ and the church as a corporate reality, this mystical union, and then on an individual level, the individual soul as a sort of like a microcosm, a miniature church, right? So this marriage song between Christ and the church, and or Christ and the soul, of course, both being in both ecclesia and psyche being grammatically feminine, so kind of flowing into that nuptial or marital theme. You know, Christ as the bridegroom, the church / soul as the bride, and then they're sharing these expressions of love and devotion between one another. And so that's the framework in which to handle these. This is a spiritual, say, cipher, or for the mysteries of the Christian faith, the deepest and most profound mysteries of the Christian faith, as a spiritual text. Right? It is not saying, right? They're not at all implying, the fathers, that human marital relations are wrong or bad, or in any way deprecating that. But the song, sorry, a little shaky there. The song is a spiritual text, and thus its reading is to be read, or its reading is governed by that spiritual purpose, or skopos, as the Greek term that the fathers will use. So we want to be reading in sync with the skopos of the scriptures. which is to draw us into the mysteries of the Christian faith and our participation in them, right? Our being brought, drawn up into this mystical union through our own purification, our own illumination. As we purify the nous, as we try to live in communion with the church, keeping the commandments, cultivating love of God, love of neighbor, and we ascend right from that purification, that level of purification, how we relate to our bodies and the material world, to these higher levels of understanding by God's grace, right? And so the song takes us to this really the summit, in a way, of scriptural contemplation of the mysteries of the Christian faith and our participation in them. Right? Again, the point is that that's the scopos, the purpose, the framework in which we relate to the words of Scripture. So, all right. So to kind of unpack the presupposition behind Theodoret's approach here. So what's his next comment? So krinon nomin uk oreon ude vunon ude pedion oplos ala kilomaton. So that same sorry, I know I'm struggling with that. Nomin. So another, that same I was, or I became. I became a lily, krinon, right? Uk oreon, not of the mountains, ude vunon, nor of the hills, ude pedion aplos, nor simply of the fields or the plains, ala kilomaton, but of the valleys. So we have this like descending schema here, right? Like the mountains, hills, valleys, right? Mountains, hills, plains, valleys. So the logos descends to the very lowest part, right, of the created order, to the valleys, or to humans that are in the valleys. Ugar monon tis zosin evangelisato tin soterian. Are negative there, not. Gar monon, for not only. Tis zosin, participle here, to those who are alive, to the living. Evangelisato, did he, this is a middle passive form, evangelidzome, so another deponent, middle passive in form but active in meaning. Not only did he, so the sato, there's a aorist, third singular aorist middle, right? So not only did he evangelize, or there's actually direct object here too, so it's kind of, let's work through it. So not only did he proclaim tin soterian, the salvation, so we might gloss that as, not only did he proclaim the good news of the salvation to dative, tis zosin, to those living, to the living, ala ke tis nekris tin anastasin, but also ala ke tin anastasin, the resurrection, to the dead. So Christ evangelizes, preaches the good news of salvation not only to those alive, but preaches the resurrection, the good news of the resurrection, to the dead. When does he do this? Katelthon istakatotera meritis is, inaplirosi ta panta. Participle here, aorist, nominative, masculine, singular, active. Kat erkome, right? So descending. Kata meaning down. Erkome to go. So kat elthon. When he or after he descended, kat erkome went down, descended east ta katotera meri tis yis, to the lower or lowest. I think it's actually technically it's a comparative adjective, the lower meri parts of the earth, genitive. Ina plirosi tapanta. In a clause, so that, which then is almost always followed by a subjunctive. I think it could take an optative as well. Optatives go with ina, but so that subjunctive, he might fill tapanta, all things. And of course, this is drawing quite heavily on Paul here in Ephesians 4. So Christ descends to the lower parts of the earth, and then so Ephesians 4, 9, and 10, that he might fill all things. So this cosmic, right, we're this cosmic scope of redemption, right? The resurrection is a cosmic event that has Christ is filling all things, transforming them. All things are put to death in and with Christ. All of creation is put to death in and with Christ and is raised again. All right. So diatuto, let me find the. All right. Diatuto, diatuto, tu men pedio anthos e avton anomadzi, krinon the ton kilomaton, tu testi ton tethnikoton. So diatuto, dia with the accusative, has the sense of on account of or because. So we could say on account of this, diatuto, because of this, on account of this. Let's jump to our verb. Well, actually, let's first recognize we see a men, right? Men, and then we so men on the one hand, and then the on the other hand. So we're a men the construction. So on account of this, on the one hand, jump to our verb here, anomadzi, he names eavton, himself. See the accusative there, direct object, right? He names himself. Anthos, so a flower of the field. Anthos tu pediu. Here's the other part. So on the one hand, now on the other, krinon the ton kilomaton, and on the other, a lily of the valleys. That is tu testi, ton tethnikoton, those who have died. The perfect participle of thnisko, I think it is, to die, to perish. So those who are dead, and the perfect, those who have died. So again, this motif of descent, right? Christ becomes descends from the heights, becomes a flower of the field, but he goes even lower than that, right? He becomes a lily of the valleys. That is a lily of the dead ones, right? Kegar ekinis. Kegar ekinis tin anaviosin epingilatote ke epragmatevsato. Kegar, so for indeed, ekinis, dative, plural, and like a It's like a demonstrative. Not this or these, but those. So, for to those ones, epingilato, he announced. I mean, this epangelo we get often is translated in the way of promise, right? To promise someone, but can have a broader sense of announcement. So I think that's the way it should be. It doesn't really. I mean, Christ actually descends to Hades to proclaim the liberation, right? Not just a promise, but to actually to announce that it's happened, right? In his very so I don't think promise quite here captures the sense, but so for indeed he announced to those ones, to the dead, tin anaviosin, literally the revival, right? To ana again, viosin, to life, right? To come back to life, the return to life, a restoration to life. So he announced and e pragmatevsato. So pragmatevo, the root of that pragma has the sense of a matter, a thing, a reality. So to turn that into a verb, he concerns himself with the matter of, right? So in the sense of to take up, to undertake. So for he announced and undertook, or concerned himself with, busied himself with the return to life for those ones, for the dead. Ita, let me make sure you can see the text. Yes. Okay. All right. Ita epithe, transitioning to the bride who's going to speak next. Ita epithe eafton tiutis onomasi. So let me connect that. Ita epithe eafton tiutis onomasi prosi gorevse visi ti nymphi. Sorry, I misspoke. He's going to speak to the bride. She'll speak the next verse. So then, ita epithe eafton tiutis anomasi pros agorevse. There's our main verb, pros agorevo. Here, it's kind of hard to translate, or I mean, not hard to translate, but to vary the vocabulary. There's so many different ways of talking about referring to, or naming, or kind of entitling. Right? So this is another verb related to naming. So to entitle, right? So I go with that. He titles himself for, of course, it's an aorist. So he titled for, then, epithe, since he titled himself, right? Prosigorevse eafton, himself, tiutis anomasi, with such names, with these sorts of names. Fisi ti nymphi, he says, or to the bride. So notice the feminine. So we'll often see these words here, nymphi, in the feminine, right? So bride versus nymphios, or is it eos or nymphos? I think nymphos, the bridegroom. No, there it is. Yeah, the bride, nymphios. There it is, nymphios. Make sure you can see that. So the nymphios. So looking for those endings to make sure we know we're either talking about the bride or the bridegroom, because they're obviously close in spelling. Right? All right. Well, let's just read. We'll make this a bit of a shorter video, and let's just maybe a preview for coming attractions. Let's just read the the next verse here of the song text. So os krinon en meso ton akanthon, utos iplysionmu en meso ton thigateron. So as a lily in the midst of thorns, as a lily and meso ton akanthon, in the midst of the thorns, utos, so also, iplysionmu en meso ton thigateron. So also in feminine, right, e plysion, so also is my mu companion. I mean, this is the root for neighbor in Greek. So my neighbor, the one who is near to me and companion. So also my companion, en meso ton thigateron. In the midst of the daughters. So if you want to freeze the screen, you can see where he's gonna. Well, you can't see all he's gonna say here, but here he's going to suggest the thigateron are the heretical sects, right? Those these little the schismatic groups that have a little they have some relationship to the church, but they're not. He's going to draw on this. You see right there. For many, he says, are called, but few are the chosen ones, right? So there are many kleti, though many called ones, but few that are eklekti, right? The chosen ones, because of their own free will, right? That is, they choose to move from the realm, move outside of the realm of the called, right? So it's not a predetermination. It's if you live in the community of the church, you are part of the elect, the called, or I'm sorry, the chosen. If you separate yourselves from the realm of the chosen, then you are no longer chosen, right? So, but I digress. But all right, well, we'll probably pick this up again, and it's nice. Theodoret is very, by and large, uncomplicated Greek. It's nice, smooth reading, and so I hope this has been of some benefit. And for those who will be celebrating Pentecost here this coming week. There we go. All right. Sorry. We'll get the technology working here. For those who will be celebrating Pentecost, the blessed feast of Pentecost. And again, I hope this has been of some benefit, and we'll again next video tackle a little bit more of this Theodoret of Cyrus on the commentary on the Song of Songs. So have a blessed rest of your day, and thanks for tuning in. Take care.